There's just two of us?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. How are you today?
Oh, doing wonderful, wonderful. Got some good weather going, so no
Yay.
complaints.
Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am to see everybody's faces and, and get a chance to talk about, what we all love, which are, events. So, with everything going on past couple of months, it's nice to get together and have some positive conversation, around something that's been so tragic. And so I really appreciate and I acknowledge all of you who are getting on right now. I do have I have a waiting room. I forgot to turn that off. So if I seem distracted at different points, it might be just because I'm letting people in to the Zoom meeting. But we're going to get started in a minute maximum. I just wanted to give an opportunity for a couple of other people to get on. So, and it looks like everyone is muted right now, but feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. Just feel free to kind of, raise your hand because I'd love to get feedback. And I'm gonna make this real, short and to the point because I know that everyone has a lot on their shoulders right now and a lot on their plate. And so we want to make sure that this is very efficient and informative. But at the same time, if something does come up and something doesn't make sense, or you are observing something different in your city or your county or state, I would love to hear from you. And I think the rest of the group would too, because it gives us all perspective on what is going on in different areas of the country. And it's really fascinating in a way to see all of the different approaches to COVID-19 from the various governors and, state officials. And so to kind of find that happy medium between everyone's approaches is, it's challenging, but it's also possible. And that's what we're going to go over today. There's some national standards that are being communicated by insurance providers and producers. And so we're going to go over those and see if that really gives us that constant that we're looking for so we can start planning for the future. So it looks like we've got quite a few people coming on in right now, but I am going to start here and start sharing my screen. And I want to give a shout out to Aubrey, who just got on. We've known each other for a very long time. Caitlin, I see you too. All right, well, let's get started. And if a couple other people show up, awesome. But right now we got the dream team here. So let's go on and share our screen. All righty, so you guys can see my screen here. If you can't, please let me know. Just raise your hand. Scott, I can see your face, so feel free to give me a thumbs down if you see something go wrong with my screen. All right, well, let's get started. So we are now going to be hosting monthly webinar series here at EventScan. The purpose of the webinar series is to provide the event industry with the most current information that we're seeing because we have boots on the ground. We're actively involved right now in COVID-19 prevention and protocol, and mostly because we have been working directly with Allied Mobile Services, which is a national company. They specialize in post-disaster workplace and community integration. And so because of that, they've really been calling on us to use our scanning technology to help companies onboard their employees back into the workplace. And so we're doing that at the same time that we're also working with a couple of movie studios that are wanting to start filming again. They want to reopen their lots. So, we're on the ground. We're seeing the effects of COVID-19, but we're also seeing very successful protocol. And that protocol could easily be rolled into the event conversation, which is what we're going to have today. So let's jump right in. If I can get my computer to go, here we go. All right, so a couple of announcements, a couple of things that we're seeing in the event industry. I'm sure all of you are seeing it as well. And then give me one moment here. I want to see if we have anyone who is sitting in the waiting room. I apologize. There we go. Okay, we are good. Sorry, take a pause there, you guys, but my screen doesn't let me jump back and forth. here we go. So let's talk about concerts. So right now, I've done 2 phone calls with record labels, and large scale tours are being canceled. They have been canceled. That's unfortunate. That I think we all were aware of some pretty cool tours that were coming up this summer and in the fall. But the good news is that they are being converted. So many record labels are looking at micro concerts, which would be smaller venues, smaller attendees, as far as capacity goes. And it's really going to be a great opportunity for many of us to see the artists that we really like in a more intimate setting. And so that's all being rescheduled right now. You're going to see a lot of that popping up over the next couple of months. And now the larger venues, the larger arenas, this is going to be a challenge for them because they're used to that revenue. But I have talked to them, and they are pivoting in a way and looking at different types of events to fulfill those dates. And we'll get into that later. But that's the good news about concerts. We are going to see them come back, but in a much more smaller atmosphere. And possibly we'll see ticket sales or ticket costs go up slightly to accommodate that. But again, it is going to be intimate. And corporate conferences. So corporate conferences, as you know, are being delayed right now. We don't see very many going on right now here during the summer, but they are being delayed to the fall and the winter, as well as the spring dates. So we're currently working with a couple of very large conferences for September and October, and helping them develop their protocol, their COVID-19 prevention and protocol. And they're feeling very confident. We have insurance providers that are agreeing to insure the conferences. So this is very positive developments in that arena. I will say, though, that there is a high demand for 2021 dates. So, I know many of you are looking at your calendars for next year, and you're wondering, okay, what is this going to look like? I have a couple of reschedules on this calendar. Get ready, because any date next year is going to be a hot date. Once we get through this quote unquote second wave that we're starting to see, and once we reach January, which a lot of health experts are saying we're going to come out of this around January, that's when we're going to see high demand. So, clear out your calendar, be ready, be prepared, because you're going to get a lot of emails and phone calls. There are insurance provider concerns, which I had mentioned earlier about concerts. So insurance providers are communicating a different set of requirements to ensure large conferences, to ensure concerts, to ensure venues, and we're going to go over some of those updates. And those are updates that we've been receiving from insurance providers, because we're also, collaborating with them and providing data back to them to help our clients get insured. Award shows. Looks like I'm skipping around here. So I'm sure you guys have read that the Oscars were pushed back, I believe, till April next year. The Emmys are continuing as scheduled. And what we're seeing is that they are developing a very concrete protocol for the Emmys already, and kind of reorganizing the entry points and exit points, and also contact tracing inside of that planning, and how they can actually trace each attendee who arrives. And this is going to be protocol that we see in micro weddings. It's going to be protocol we see in large award shows. It's just going to be a new protocol that we'll see for at least the next 12, maybe to 36 months. So if we all can start learning about that protocol and start getting ready to implement that protocol, then we'll be ready for the demand when our phones are ringing and our emails are, our inbox is filling up with all those 2021 date requests. And then weddings and private events. I know that we have a couple of venues here on this call today. Believe it or not, we had over 80 attendees that were registered for this call. And I've already been receiving emails from different attendees who had to postpone, and they're going to watch the recorded version of this today, this webinar. That's actually good for them. Many of them are getting some requests already for events, and so they had to be pulled aside to go do those meetings, and I congratulate them on those opportunities. But we do have some venues that are working with us today, or listening in today, and I just want to encourage those wedding venues, because we are seeing clients pushing back their dates, but they're being very realistic in their approach to those rescheduled dates, and we're just going to see more improvements over time. So let's talk about new developments with COVID-19 prevention. So we have been in communication with insurance providers. There are insurance providers that provide, obviously venue coverage, but there's also providers that cover individual events, whether it be wedding insurance or concert tour insurance. And these are all things that we're all familiar with. So what they're communicating right now for live events is that they're wanting evidence of the following. So, grab your pen and piece of paper. This will be recorded for later, but you definitely want to note these. So they are wanting evidence of temperature scanning protocol with FDA approved devices. Normally that would be a simple request, but they're also wanting video data or some type of reporting data that is sent back to them or shown to them up front to show that there's a system in place, thus making them feel more confident about underwriting venues and events. And thankfully the technology is out there. That's what EventScan does. So it's all good news right there. If I can get my presentation here. There we go. They're wanting to see established contact tracing protocol. There are some classes now that are popping up online that you can register for. There's free classes. I believe there's also paid classes, but there are educational opportunities to learn about contact tracing, how it works, what exactly is contact tracing, which is a big question that I get a lot. But in essence, in summary, it's actually keeping up with the individuals that are entering into the event and essentially recording who was at the event. After, of course, their temperature scanning, what was the results of that, so that you can trace who they interacted with. They are wanting to see evidence, and I've only had 2 providers ask for this, so they are wanting to see evidence of diagrams that have been produced prior to the event showing social distancing. There are some really great calculators online now that rental companies and different outlets are providing that allows you to actually go in and calculate the spacing between tables and spacing between chairs. So I really think if you Google, you'll find them pretty easily, and they're easy to use, and it just, again, makes those providers feel confident, because we want to keep our venues insured. That is the #1 priority. Some of them, I've only had 3 providers that have asked for liability waivers. So those providers wanted to see evidence that a waiver was being provided to all attendees and required to be signed by attendees before they were permitted into the event. And our EventScan system has that integrated, so it's already a part of the scanning protocol. But if you're not using EventScan, you want to have a liability waiver template on file, something that you have access to very quickly. And I highly recommend speaking to your legal team. And I also know that Legal Shield, if you're not familiar with Legal Shield, definitely Google it. But Legal Shield is providing those services for all of their business customers. And I think that their cost is as little as $89 a month to talk to actually talk to a lawyer and work on your waiver. So I highly recommend that. I've seen it firsthand. And as I said, our EventScan is fulfilling these requirements. And I just want to mention that as a reassurance to those of you who are on the call or watching the recorded version of this webinar who are currently working with our system, that we are keeping up with what providers need and making sure that we also provide that to you on site so that you have a peace of mind. And then at the end of the usage of the system, we do export a video report. And that video report has every single person who attended the event, they're scanning a video scan of their facial scan, as well as their temperature reading. So let's keep talking about new developments. I'm sure you guys have seen that the CDC has released new recommendations for social gatherings, and then the World Health Organization also released their recommendations updated for social gatherings. So we're getting some really great information from both of those organizations that we can put into action ourselves. So they are recommending that the same recommendations are still constant: hand washing, face covering, 6-foot minimum distancing, all the things that we've been hearing about for months now. Those are still in place. But the new recommendations are posting signage in highly visible locations. So if you operate a venue, then I highly recommend taking a look at some permanent signage that you can place at your entry and exit points. And if you do not have a waiver that people are signing before they come into your venue, then you want to have some variation of that waiver on a sign that's posted in different areas of the venue so that those who are in the venue understand of what they're agreeing to by being there for a social gathering. Also, there is a recommendation that you broadcast your measures to your guests ahead of time. And that's always a good protocol. I mean, outside of COVID-19, it's always great to have clear communication with your guests. So what they're recommending is that before your guests arrive to the social gathering, that you communicate to them up front of what to expect. So if you will have a waiver when they arrive, let them know ahead of time. If you're going to require they wash their hands at a hand washing station before they enter, just let them know. It seems that guests are more comfortable knowing what they're going into, and they're more confident, and then they're not caught off guard when they arrive. Physical barriers and guides, which were already a recommendation, they've updated those recommendations with more clear parameters for what type of barriers and what type of guides. And I highly recommend Googling both the CDC and the World Health Organization and taking a look at those. They are recognizing ventilation and the importance of proper ventilation. So if the event is going to be indoors, then it's very important as an event professional, an event producer, to have a conversation with the venue and have a powerful conversation, one that leaves you both super encouraged and confident with what you're doing moving into the event. But you want to talk about the ventilation system, when was it last maintenance, what type of system they have. You just want to kind of get updated on what to expect. And then last but not least, water systems. So some arenas and venues turned off different, water, electrical, and whatnot during the lockdown. So what the CDC is recommending, that you want to confirm that those water systems have been maintained post-lockdown. So if there are water fountains, obviously restrooms that are being used, it's just a simple question. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just ask the venue, have your water systems been maintained post-lockdown? And if if they did turn those systems off and they simply just turned them back on, but maybe didn't do a check on the quality of the water, then that may want to be addressed, and that's, again, going to put everyone in a very confident place moving forward. So let's keep talking about COVID-19 prevention. So what are event producers and venues currently doing to accommodate large groups? So here's what we're seeing. Installation of automated temperature scanning devices that have record keeping for insurance coverage. Again, it all comes back to insurance coverage. The devices are actually quite affordable. There's payment plans. I know we have payment plans here at EventScan because we can actually sell these devices to venues and install them and get them up and running for venues. But it's definitely something you want to look into, because using hand scanners and paying an employee to do the hand scanning, it does leave room for error, and you just want to be, as careful as possible. Hand washing stations and automated hand sanitizer kiosks are very, very helpful. The hand washing stations, those can be rented very easily from providers in your local area. They're typically used on construction sites or at events. So these are going to be available hopefully in your zip code, maybe not down the street, but nearby if you need them. And then automated hand sanitizer kiosks are actually available on Amazon. So, hop on Amazon, sign into your Prime account, take a look at what they have. They're super helpful because you can place them around the venue so they're readily available for your guests at any time. UV sterilization tools. There's a whole range of tools. Allied Mobile, who's sponsoring this webinar today, I know that they stock a whole wide variety of those, and they provide them at a very affordable rate for companies and professionals. And it's something, you may want to consider. There's hand wands that professionals are using to simply, wave over, like doorknobs and areas like that throughout the event, like restroom doorknobs. But there's also UV sterilization towers that you can place in the corners of a room. It actually sterilizes different parts of the room during the event. It's incredible technology. Regular sanitation schedules. This is going to be more on the side of the venue and the arenas conversation. And obviously cleaning and sanitation has always been a constant in the conversation of arenas and venues, but now it is more than ever. And really producers and event planners and clients, they're wanting to see that there's evidence of a regular schedule and an FDA approved cleaning supplies to help combat any exposure to COVID-19, because there are some mixed, information coming in saying, does it live on the surface? Does it not? It's better just to play on the side of caution and make sure you have that all squared away. Adhering to state regulations and health department guidelines. That's a very wide umbrella statement. But as you know, the regulations are different in every state, and they're different with each health department. I've found a great resource for this information are caterers. So if you have caterers in your area that are currently operating, they're currently getting on board with all of the local health department guidelines and like liquor license guidelines. Like in Texas, you have TABC. So you want to, maybe touch base with some caterers in your area that you have a great relationship with and talk to them about what they're doing as prevention, because you'll learn a lot from listening to them. I know that I have. And then last but not least, mask. There's a big conversation. Do I wear a face mask? Do I not wear a face mask? Is it required? Is it not required? There's a lot of mixed reviews. Everyone has their own opinion, but what we find is a great recommendation is to have some masks that are complimentary at the event, because you never know how comfortable or uncomfortable that guest is going to be. And if you have those on standby, ready to provide to them, what you're doing is simply providing them great customer service. And again, you want them to feel safe and secure at your event. So, why not have a couple on standby? There's, very affordable, disposable, non-medical masks, and those work great. Last but not least, I thought the masks were last, but no, social distancing, room, space, and capacity calculators. I mentioned this earlier. I came across banquettablespro.com. They have a great calculator that you can use online for free. And I was playing with it a little bit a couple of days ago, and I was super impressed. And I've already been sharing it with a lot of the event professionals that I talk to on a regular basis. So, check it out, but you can also Google and you probably can find some. But it will definitely instill that confidence with your client, with them knowing that you're taking the appropriate precautionary steps to help make sure that everyone is distanced safely. And, I didn't want to have this webinar without mentioning this, because I know that it's basically a global statement that event professionals are dealing with financial issues and concerns. To say that our industry has not been impacted by COVID-19 would be false. I think that our industry is literally at an uphill climb right now. And a lot of it has to do with the financial side. We're dealing with a lot of rescheduled clients. We're dealing with canceled clients. It's a difficult time. And thankfully, there are programs available. There's grants. We've seen that the Economic Injury Disaster Relief Program got more funding recently, which is really great for our business owners. But here at EventScan, we have launched our own program, because the way we see it in our mission, our mission is to bring live events back, but in a safe and secure environment. So within that mission, we also are inspired to support the professionals that we work with. So if you are a professional who's registered for free in our affiliate program, which simply just gives you access to these webinars and information, and of course the systems for your clients, if you need EventScan, that program is really doing wonders. So you can register for free, and all affiliates receive a minimum of $500 in assistance with each rental or purchase of a system. And the goal is that we can infuse the industry with that assistance and help everyone get up and running, and really just, lock arms and power through this time in our country and make our way to next year.
Excuse me, can you check the waiting room? Somebody wants to get in.
Wonderful. Yes, hold on one moment. You're all going to see me switch over. It's about as real as it gets, right? Here we go. And let's see, I'm looking for that waiting room here. Here we go, Glenna and Laura. Thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate that. When you share a screen, it's difficult to see. Hello and welcome to the webinar. How are you guys doing? Oh, they're probably muted. So if you're just now getting into the webinar, please be reassured that this is being recorded. And so you'll be able to go back and watch this, you know, in your own time. It'll be on our YouTube channel. But real quickly, we were just going over financial assistance for event professionals. Here at EventScan, we are offering assistance to professionals that register in our affiliate program. The affiliate program is free. The simple purpose of the program is to find out what professionals are actively developing prevention protocol and looking for resources and want to be in the conversation with us so that we can make sure that we provide that information as quickly and efficiently as possible. This webinar series is going to be monthly, but those who are in our affiliate program are going to be getting updates throughout the month as we see new developments with our boots on the ground. As our teams are on the ground working with COVID-19 prevention, we're passing on to our affiliates what we're learning along the way. And as I was saying, any affiliate in our program who, you know, shares about EventScan and helps their clients with COVID-19 prevention, that affiliate does receive a minimum of $500 in assistance with each client that works with us. And of course, we're renting and we're selling the systems. All affiliates get complimentary reports from the systems for insurance coverage. And again, we went over that earlier in the webinar. Those of you who are now joining us, just to let you know, there's been a lot of development with insurance providers. And early in the webinar, we went over those new developments, and I highly, highly recommend that you go over those once we have this recorded and available to watch. And then also our affiliates do have access to an informational slide deck, and that slide deck can be used with affiliates clients. It does help when you're in the conversation with a client and they're concerned and worried about COVID-19 exposure for their guests. When you have this slide deck ready to go, you can easily go over it with the client, put them at ease, and begin to instill that reassurance of a safe and secure environment for their upcoming event. And then also our affiliates have access to a liability waiver template, and that template is super, super helpful. And as I said, you know, you can definitely get in touch with companies like Legal Shield, and they are working actively with event professionals to help those companies and those professionals develop their own waiver. But the waiver that we have is available for usage by our affiliates. And then also, all of our affiliates do have access to discounted prevention supplies from Allied Mobile. So that was one of the things that we requested from Allied Mobile about a month ago, was we said, you know, our industry needs these supplies more than ever because we are actively working with guests and clients and social gatherings. And so they have set up discounted pricing. And again, the goal is just to get those supplies out there, get the tools out there, and help everybody feel confident moving forward. So as I promised, this was going to be a very short, sweet, and to the point webinar. But again, the goal was to get this information in your hands and really just, you know, put it out there so you can run with it and feel encouraged and positive in a time that may feel challenging and discouraging. You know, we're going to be talking once a month. I'm going to be sharing the good news. I'm going to be also sharing solutions. And, you know, like I said, we're going to lock arms and we're going to get through this together. So let me ask real quickly, of those of you who are on the call today, does anyone have any questions or any feedback of what you're seeing in your area?
I do.
Hi, Scott. Yes.
Hi. Obviously, you can detect or see that someone might have a temperature.
Right.
What are the procedures once you see someone is flagging as potentially infected? What do you do?
Yeah. So what we're seeing right now, and then we're seeing this in the workplace conversation, because we're working with employers to scan their employees before they're permitted back into the building to work. And you know, and each approach can be slightly different, but our standard protocol that we come to the table with, and of course that protocol can be altered slightly by the client, but our standard protocol is that if somebody does have fever detected, Our systems actually read the temperature behind the eyes, so it's not reading the surface of the skin, which is what you see with your standard hand scanners. And I believe all the temperature readers on the market only scan the skin surface. We got a hold of these cameras through a security client, and these are used in like airports and so on. So you're getting a temperature scan back here. And I mentioned that, Scott, because it's important to have the most accurate temperature reading possible when dealing with such a delicate situation, which is having to approach the guest or the employee or the client and inform them if they did set off the internal alarm on the software and it appears that they're running a fever or showing symptoms of possibly a virus or an illness. It's not COVID-19 detection, it's just symptom detection. So when that person or that individual does set off the alarm, we have a standard script that we go through with that individual that hopefully, and so far it has worked, because they tend to be a little alarmed when this happens, but we approach them and we inform that they did set off the alarm and that we have a climate controlled holding room, literally steps away from where we're testing. And we would love it if they would take the opportunity to go to that holding room and grab a cold bottle of water and cool down and give themselves about 10 minutes to what we call recalibrate. And the hope is that it either was a false reading or that person for some reason tested warm because, not because of fever, but maybe because of environmental impacts and environmental issues, whether it be you're in Texas and it's middle of July and it's hot outside and you parked your car and you walked over and you got overheated. So there's a lot of different elements that could occur. So that person is put in holding for about 10 minutes. They're not being forced to be in holding. We just request that they go into holding for a moment. And then we bring them back 10 minutes later and we test them again. If they do test for a fever the second time around, we have two options. So we do offer rapid COVID-19 testing on site that can be chosen by our clients, and we provide that service. And that person can opt to be tested for COVID-19 and find out in under 10 minutes if they do have it. But if the client has chosen not to have testing on site, then unfortunately that person is not permitted into the event. Instead, they are directed to the nearest clinic that is doing rapid testing in the area. It's an uncomfortable conversation, and I will admit over the past month, we've had one person that has tested for COVID-19. They're on site in rapid testing, and that individual left immediately and took their family with them. And unfortunately, it was a small event. And so that client, because I think they had 25 people or so, they chose to postpone the event and send everybody home. So that's one person, 1 month, one person that got tested, and that was the result of what we saw. We've had other people test warm, and when they come back to retest, they're cleared, no issue. So it kind of varies based on the event, but that so far we're seeing that protocol works well, and that the second testing 9 times out of 10 does clear the person, and it was simply a false reading or some other exterior element that was affecting it. Does that help? Awesome. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Catherine, I was talking to a few event planners and other people from the hospitality business 2 days ago. And I was talking today about the waiver, and they were telling me their lawyers are recommended not to do it.
Well, it really is, it's a, client by client situation. It's really on what they feel comfortable with. Our legal team, they have advised producing a waiver only because we have insurance providers that are asking for a waiver. And so the waiver is actually an optional element of the EventScan system. So if the client says, no, I'm not taking waivers, or no, we already had our own waiver and we already had all of our attendees sign that waiver prior to arriving at the event, then that particular step would be removed from the process. So you're right, there's a lot of mixed information out there, and different lawyers are giving different advice. And so my recommendation would be to talk to the insurance provider for the venue or the insurance provider for the event and ask them what they need in order to feel confident underwriting that particular event or underwriting liability insurance. And based on what they say, I would totally work with them and provide them what they ask for. The last thing that we want to see, which we did see back in April, we don't want to see this anymore, which are venues losing their coverage. Instead, we want providers to know that we as an industry are more than happy to work with them and find resolutions. But I agree, I am hearing that as well. It's almost 50-50. So I recommend going to the insurance provider and finding out what they want. And if they don't require a waiver and the client doesn't want to go through that process, then that's a personal choice. And thankfully, it won't impact the coverage of that production. Thank you for asking, and thank you for providing that feedback. I'm seeing a lot in Facebook groups, so there's a lot of feedback. Does anybody else have any questions or any feedback? I mean, maybe you want to let us know what's going on in your area.
I'm mostly interested in the trade show event space. So if I'm bringing groups in, is there a gate that they need to go through to be scanned, or how do you individually scan, and how long does the scan take?
Yeah, so the scan only takes 1 to 2 seconds per person. So we actually have a chart that calculates based on the number of people attending the event, how long it takes to process everybody. But thankfully, with all of the packages that we set up, we're able to scan up to 2,500 people in a matter of 2 hours or less. And that's working really well with some of the smaller concert venues that are beginning to have some smaller, smaller concerts and artists come in. They're starting to stagger their ticket holders so that they arrive at, almost like if you were boarding a plane, like with Southwest, Group A, Group B, Group C. So, some venues are taking that approach and staggering their attendees so that we can scan everybody, which we could scan everyone if they show up at the same time, but they may be in line for a little while, and we want to avoid
Is that with one station, or is that with multiple stations in order to scan in that time period? What is that?
Yeah, so it would be multiple stations. For 2,500 people, you would need 3 stations in order to scan everyone in 2 hours or less. And those stations need to be set up outside of the entry points to the venue, and they need to be in a climate-controlled atmosphere. So I have a client in Las Vegas who is a tenting company, and so what they're arranging is a climate-controlled tent. Even if it's an outdoor event, they'll have a climate-controlled tent for the scanning, and then a climate-controlled tent for the waiting/holding room, which you always want to have, somewhere on the premises.
So using your figure, the 2,500 taking 2 hours, if I put in 6 stations, I can cut that down to an hour then?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then just magnifying it by that. Because if I'm looking at an event that I might have, say, 10,000 people coming in, typically in a trade show up to this point, you've opened the doors and you've had a flood of people. So obviously there's going to be traffic flow situations, but I'm looking to process as many people to get on that trade show floor
as quickly as possible.
Right.
We do have contact tracing wristbands that are included with the EventScan system. So we meet with the client. So for example, we would meet with you ahead of time. Actually, a couple of times we would have a couple of meetings. But there are color-coded wristbands that we would utilize to identify people. So for example, if they are scanned successfully and ready to be permitted into the event, they would receive a certain colored wristband. And that would allow your personnel at the entry points and exit points to allow that person and permit them in. That was simply looking at the wristband. We did have a client that used color-coded stickers on name tags, and that worked really well as well, but you want to have something visual. And then those who tested with a fever that were put into a holding room are given a different colored wristband, because we recommend that our clients have one personnel who's actually stationed outside that waiting room, so that if somebody does go to that waiting room and, because we're going to go get them for the next scan, but if they want to sneak out of the waiting room and try to sneak into the trade show, then we need to have really clear security protocol in place to prevent that. And then if there's a security team on site at a convention center, we can actually do a real-time live feed to that security team's office, so they can have a security officer who's also watching the scans as we're scanning. And that keeps them in the conversation of knowing what's happening in the moment as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of trade show producers There's quite a few that, you know, are postponing or trying to postpone to the later, you know, winter, closer to winter, but not before, not after Thanksgiving, not before Christmas. So it's a little tricky. But, you know, they are having that same conversation with me. How many stations can we have on site to process the most amount of people? I was talking to Minute Maid Park, you know, about when baseball does come back, fingers crossed, when it comes back, how to process players and coaches and trainers and personnel quickly and efficiently, as well as visiting teams. And they have the same concerns. So, so we have that calculation and we can provide that to you at any time. No problem.
Can you give us an idea about costs?
Yes. So the EventScan system is set up in a licensing format. So it's based on the quantity of people, and our affiliates have access to a pricing chart that, you know, gives them a good gauge on quantity of people, number of stations needed, and then the overall cost to process that number of people. But we do recommend having a minimum budget of, I believe it's $4,800 would be the minimum budget for our smallest tier of people, and it builds up from there. The good thing though is I sent a quote to a client who's having a conference in the fall, in the winter time, and they have 280 people attending, and I believe their overall cost was $6,250 all in, completely, with the personnel, the systems, the setup, the removal, and they're looking at a 2-day conference. So, you know, it was very encouraging to them to know that they could also scan a second day if they needed to, and our personnel would be on site the second day of the conference to do that. So I recommend just, you know, having that minimum budget of $4,800 to do a rental system. And then we do have venues that are placing orders to purchase systems and permanently install those in their venues. And that's usually the venues that are concert producing venues that are going to have, you know, ticket sales and constant, you know, performances is what once they get up and running, they'll have a lot of traffic. And those systems are priced based on the number of cameras that they're looking at. But we do recommend having a minimum budget of, you know, between 16 and 20 grand to purchase a system, have it installed, and also have the training for your personnel on site. So I hope that helps provide some gauging. But a lot of venues are choosing rental right now because everything is so up in the air as far as scheduling goes for the remainder of the year. And, you know, we're just trying to find the best solution to allow them, you know, whatever they need to get their doors open as quickly as possible. So my email's right up here. Sorry. My email's up here. So if you want to email me, please do. I'm happy to send you this information and pricing charts and slide decks. Again, I'm on a mission along with my team just to help you guys have what you need. And if you see there's something that we're not providing that you need, let me know and we'll go resource it. We just want to see everyone up and running soon. But thank you for that question. Well, I see that we're kind of nearing 1:15 p.m. We've been on here for about 45 minutes. I'm going to go on and wrap up the webinar, but like I said, my email's right here. You're welcome to give me a shout out. If you just want to talk and say, hey, I need someone to kind of talk out my fears and concerns, send me an email. We'll set up a call and we'll just chit chat. You know, it's all good. I think that the more we support each other and the more we have each other's back, the better. So thank you so much for attending today. This webinar will be emailed out to everyone in a recorded format if you want to share with your team members in your company. And I'm happy to set up a webinar for your team if you would like to do a one-on-one. So have a great day, have a great week, and I'm thinking about all of you, and I wish you just nothing but the best and blessings.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.